I wanted to build a simple yet elegant and modern accent wall. So I decided to get some 1x4s and a pencil, and I decided to create one for my daughter. So now let me show you guys all the steps I took to get this accent wall done and how you can do the same exact thing in your house. So let's get started. So when it came to this accent wall, I knew what I had in mind. But before I got too crazy, I wanted to draw everything out, like so. So as stated before, all I'm using for this is 1x4s. Now I also installed a 1x6 baseboard, which I'm working on this room currently. I'll have more videos out there on what else I'm doing with this room. But pertaining just to this accent wall, all you need is 1x4s. So the reason you want to draw out your accent wall before you get too crazy, or even use masking tape, is so you have a rough design idea of what you're doing. It's a lot easier to draw something out and just paint over it or not do it than install everything and figure out you don't like it. So when it came to drawing out this accent wall, all I had was a level and a pencil, and I spaced everything out evenly and got my pattern. I also used a scrap 1x4 so I can draw the exact thickness, so I knew how thick the wood would be pertaining in relation to my switches and my outlets. Because the last thing you want to do with an accent wall is put it all in and figure out you have to notch something out to make a switch or an outlet fit. So now that we know our design, you make your measurements and we're gonna go outside and cut the wood. All right, so we got our wood cut and we got it upstairs. Now we need to install it on the wall. So when it comes to mounting your wood, sadly, you're not gonna be lined up with the studs most of the time. So in order to have proper adhesion, you're gonna wanna use some sort of construction adhesive like this Loctite PL375, or anything you have lying around. If not, just go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you can find this stuff there. Now in the corners, we do know that there are always gonna be 2x4s in a corner, so we know that we can nail it in this corner, but we're also still gonna use the construction adhesive. Starting off, we always wanna test fit our wood first. So I'm test fitting this wood in the corner here, and everything's lining up nice, however, it is sticking out a hair here. So what I wanna do is I actually wanna break some of that drywall out so this can be recessed in a bit. So we're just gonna take a hammer and hit. So now that wood is sitting nice and flush in the corner and not having any overhang, so now we can mount it. Take your Loctite and put it on the back of the board. We also want to take wood glue and put it at the bottom where the boards are going to meet. Apply a nice liberal coat and slap it on. I also did forget to mention I'm using 16 gauge nails out of a cordless nailer. Some of these are going into wood, some of these are just going into drywall. This has just helped to hold the board in place until that construction adhesive fully cures. Also got some nails sticking out, so I'm gonna take my nail punch and punch them in. So now that the first board's mounted, we gotta do the rest. So let's do that. This board I'm installing right now does happen to be right on a stud, so I know I'll be going into wood. Now, before everyone starts freaking out saying you're not using a level, you obviously can use a level. However, these lines I made are perfectly level. I did that when I drew it out originally. Thankfully, this wall I don't need to blow out because it's nice and flush with the baseboard at the bottom. The last board's up, now we're gonna put the top board on. Now before we get too crazy, we wanna set the top board on top and make sure that everything meets it nice and flushly, and if there's any imperfections, we wanna fix those before we mount the top board. All right, so it looks like this top board may have a bit of a bow in it, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate it and try it the other way. That's definitely a little better. So now what we need to do is the same thing we did with other boards, put construction adhesive on, put glue on all the other boards. I applied the glue, camera wasn't on it, I apologize for that, but now we're gonna put the board on top. We're gonna work our way left to right. Now before I forget, you can nail this one directly into the studs since it goes horizontal with the wall. Before that glue runs anymore, make sure you wipe it down. Now while I'm wiping down the glue, I do want to say this glue helps fill in these gaps and cracks so that when it comes times to sand, it will help hide the cracks that the boards will show. Now the glue is also good for obviously holding the joints together, but it can do that as well. Got a couple pop nails, I'm gonna hammer them in. So now we got a rough product right now. We need to fill in all the nail holes and caulk it all. When it comes to filling in the nail holes, I'm just gonna be using this plastic wood made by DAP. It goes on pink and dries natural, so you know that it's dry. Now, one thing I wanna point out is all these joints here, you wanna fill in with wood filler. It'll help make it smoother down the road. So just take a good glob and slather it on. And once you got it something like that, just keep filling in the nail holes. So the wood filler's all done and drying. Now I need a caulk. I like to use a high quality caulk such as this Alex Flex made by DAP. It's meant for crown molding and it says it'll last for 60 years and so forth, but it's more expensive stuff, but I think it's worth it in the long run. All you need to do to caulk, get a little bit of a 45-degree angle on the caulk tube itself, stick it in your gun, and start running your beads. I also like to wear gloves when doing this because I find that caulk gets real sticky and sticks to your hands, which I don't like. Once you got your bead of caulk down, just use a finger to smooth it out and wipe it on a paper towel or a wet rag. All right, so all the caulking's done now. Now we're gonna let this dry overnight, come back to it, and sand it down. All right, so it's the next day, and as you can see, I got a big mess going here. I got a ton of trim work going on for multiple different projects, but when it comes to sanding, everything takes the same. A 240 grit sandpaper on a random orbital sander. And then all you need to do is get to sanding. So everything's dried and sanded, and now you're probably wondering, are we gonna paint it? What are we gonna do? What color are we gonna paint? Well, this is for my daughter's room, so my wife chose this pink color right here. It's called Minstrel Rose, and I got it at Home Depot. I'm gonna be using Behr paint with this. I've never painted with Behr paint. This is Behr Ultra. I believe it's their second in line versus the 4 they have, 1 being the lowest, 4 being the highest. So I'm gonna give it a mix and give it a try. When it comes to how I'm gonna be applying it, I'm just gonna be rolling it on using a 3/8 inch nap roller. This is gonna give it a little bit of texture like the wall already has. So it'll hopefully match the texture the wall has and give this board a little texture. Now I should be able to cut in all the edges and stuff with the roller. If I can't, then I'll go get the brush and brush in some of the edges. So let's get painting. And actually, before we get painting, I'm only painting up to the white board at the top. We're actually gonna wallpaper the rest, which I'll show you here in a bit. All right, so the first coat is dry and looking pretty good. Definitely need the second coat though, as some of the white is still showing through. But once the second coat's done, it should be good to go. All right, the second coat's drying. We're gonna let it dry overnight. Then we'll come back and start working on the wallpaper and touching up around the trim. So it's the next day, paint's all dry. Now we're gonna put the outlet covers on and the cover for the switch real quick, and then we'll move on to the next step. I'm also gonna install this Tapo switch. All it is adhesive on the back. It's magnetic, so the switch currently isn't on there. But if you wanna check this product out, I got other videos on my channel, so check those out. So the outlet covers are on now. The next step we need to do is put up the wallpaper. The wallpaper I'm gonna be using is this peel and stick wallpaper. I got it off Amazon, I'll link it down below. So, I've never done this before, but let's get to it. So it does come with instructions. It says you need to clean the surface, peel the back of the wallpaper, stick it on, and then smooth it out. I also did get a kit they recommend getting off Amazon. This was like $5 or $10. Just got a knife and some other tools in here for wallpaper. Here's what the back of it looks like. It's got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then it repeats. I assume that's how you know where to line your flowers up or whatever pattern you have. So what I'm gonna try to do first, I'm gonna measure from the top of the ceiling down to the bottom right here. It is 42.5, so let's just go 43 for some excess. Now I'm gonna lay it out and measure it out to 43, which is right here. Let's flip it over. We are right on 10. So before I get too crazy, I want to try to lay some of this out and make sure that it's going to line up correctly. All right, so it's lining up right there. All right, so that is lining up perfectly right there. So in regards to the back, let's see how the numbers correlate. Said the very top says 10, and it's the very top right there. So I'm gonna stick the first piece on and go from there. So my surface is already clean. I wiped it down with a rag. Now I'm gonna apply this and give it a shot. So this piece right here is absolutely critical that you get it level. So I'm gonna take my level real quick and just see where that line's lining up. All right, so it is a little off right now. So what I'm gonna do to actually help give me a reference point is put my level here, make sure it's nice and level, and draw a line on the wall. So I got it pretty much lined up with that line. So now I'm gonna start taking this and feathering it out. Also use your hand, just be real careful. You'll wanna make sure you leave excess at the top and on the sides and on the bottom. Just rub out the bubbles. So the first piece of wallpaper is up, which they always say is the hardest. Now I just need to keep lining it up and keep going down the row. And we'll come back and get all these edges once we're all done setting all the wallpaper. So I got this box for this light right here and I need to cut around it. So all I'm gonna do is just feel that outline and make my cut right on it. And it just peels right off like that. Row number 3. One thing I do want to point out right now is actually start making your cuts of your excess after every time you place it, because the reason I say that is I messed up on this one. My cut was too low, so I had to pull it back off and put it back on. Thankfully, it was the one I just put on. However, let's say I got them all up and I made my cut and messed up over here. I'd essentially have to take it all the way back and then try to put it on. So I learned from my mistake, but make all your cuts right after you place it, at least in my mind. All right, so I just ran out of wallpaper right now. I need 2 more sections, a full section and roughly a little under a half section. I do have a piece that is long enough, however, the pattern doesn't line up, so about 6 inches of it is not covering the wall. I didn't account for the patterns not always lining up. However, I did get some extra, but it wasn't enough because I had to peel one off. I'm gonna order more and have to finish it up later. However, right now I can install both the lights, so let me do that. All right, so now that this plate's mounted and the screws right here are leveled, I need to hook my grounds together. Now, on a side note, I highly recommend doing a hardwired light system if you're gonna put wall lights in for an accent wall. I know battery operated lights have been all the rage and stuff. However, I think those are cheap and chintzy, and you might as well spend just a little bit extra money and have a hardwired system. Now, if you're not comfortable with it, I understand the point of just putting battery ones up. But still, you got to replace the batteries every so often in those, and you can't have them smart controlled like I can have these lights. So I only have 2 wires coming out of this lamp here, and there's a ribbed side, which is the neutral, and a smooth side, which is the hot. Neutral's hooked up. Let me hook up the hot. Push the wires in, screw these little nuts on. This one's up, let's go do the other one. Now in here I got 2 wires. Get the wire from the other light that comes in here, and then power comes from the switch in here as well. Firm power's off, switch is off, and Tick Tracer said there's no power there. All right, nice and level. Same thing here, we're gonna hook all the grounds together. All right, wires are all stripped. Hook the hots together. And now we're gonna hook the neutrals. Shove the wires back in the box and slide the light on. And don't forget to screw the light bulbs in. The lights are installed and looking good. They're on a dimmer switch, so I can dim them if I want, and then I can dim them back up. Now I just need to touch up where I got paint all over on the wall over there, and same with the other side. And we need to get that extra wallpaper, so it'll be a few days, but we're almost done with this accent wall. So the wallpaper finally came. Now let's finish getting it up on the wall. All right, so we're in the last corner piece here. This pattern isn't lining up exactly. It's all right though. It kind of does hide it. I tried to center it in the middle here, but I would not recommend this wallpaper as I got the same product, but 2 different orders and they're not lining up. But I'm not gonna go through all the work of taking all the wallpaper down. We'll make do with what we got. All right, I got a little corner piece cut out and now we're gonna fit it in the corner. As you can kind of tell, even the own wallpaper that was in the same order isn't even lining up with itself. So that is a little disappointing. And just like that, this accent wall project is complete. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns on how I got this project done, or any recommendations on what I can improve on, leave it down in the comment section below and I'll give you a response as soon as possible. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video on how to build an accent wall and that you're inspired to build your own accent wall similar to this, or maybe something completely different because this just wasn't your taste. But as always, I thank you guys for watching this video. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good rest of your day.